Nation, what a bombshell.
What a bombshell. And just for posterity, let's go.
Let's go, baby. DMVR Buffs emergency podcast today. If you're here, you've seen the news already. Sean Lewis will no longer be calling plays for the Colorado Buffaloes. Pat Shurmur elevated the play caller, some shuffling along Coach Prime's staff. Ryan, your immediate reaction, go.
My immediate reaction is that I am not necessarily shocked. I think a lot of people were, but what do we always say, Jake? Coach Prime always lets you know what's going to happen before it's going to happen. And I think back to two times where we might have been a little bit warned by this. One actually goes back before the season, so it's a little different. But Coach Prime was in a staff meeting with his coaches and coordinators, and he said, "We are here to win now, not later, not next year, not next week. We are here to win now." And why that signaled something to me is Coach Prime has no patience. It's not that he has little patience; he has no patience. And I mean that no patience for losing, no patience for failure. And so that was one signal. The other one was a lot more direct and a lot sooner to right now. And it was on Saturday after the game. Coach Prime was asked, "How do you feel?" Was it directly about Sean Lewis or was it just about the coordinators? How do you feel your coordinators are performing or something along those lines?
I think it might have been just coordinators.
Yep.
I don't know if it
How
was
do you feel your
Shurmur
coordinators are
specifically.
performing? And Coach Prime laughed and he said, "Good try. Good try. I've been in your seat. I know what you're trying to do. And I'm not taking the bait, but good try." And what did that tell us? It didn't say, "I'm not going to tell you that I think the coordinators are doing a great job." It told us, "I'm not going to say what I really want to say right now." And, obviously now that we have this news, we know that was about Sean Lewis. And, what he would have said is it's not good enough. And because of that, Coach Prime doesn't have time to waste, time to wait. So, he didn't believe that Sean Lewis was doing a good enough job, so he stepped in and made a move, not displaying anything but urgency, which is what he's all about.
Exactly. You go back to last week, and I think last week was the most glaring example of this change that needed to happen. I mean, the fan base has been asking for it for basically since the USC game. There were some murmurs even before that. But I mean, when you look at the box score, and not to go through it all over again, only 11 designed runs for the running backs. Coach Prime repeatedly throughout this season has said how good this running back room is, how deep it is, and how they need to get them the ball. They just haven't committed to the running game. That last designed run at the end of the first half, didn't see it was a one possession game that entire time. CU's offensive line was struggling. Shador was under siege, and we didn't see a designed run until midway through the fourth quarter when the game was out of reach. So it's something that the writing has been on the wall. And as you said, Coach Prime, if you listen to the man, he tells you exactly what's going to happen. Same thing happened here. And now Pat Shurmur's at the helm. And I tweeted this out, and I think it's something that needs to be made pretty clear. Changing play callers does not mean we're changing the design and the scheme of the offense. We don't have time for that.
No time for that.
The
Yep.
offense that is in place is going to be the offense that is going to be on the field tomorrow and the rest of the season. It's just that there's another person making the play calls, and it's more of like a co-OC type of thing now too. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it is an interesting dynamic. And I also want to say this. I think that Sean Lewis is still a promising young offensive
Yes.
mind in this game. And I don't think this is a reflection that Sean Lewis sucks or anything like that. What I do think is that Sean Lewis did not have the right counter to the struggles that the Buffs were having on offense. And that a lot of that comes back to the offensive line. And there's a million people out there saying, what is Pat Shurmur going to call the offensive line block play? And I think it's a fair comment. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've said it a lot. There's no play call for your offensive line not blocking. That being said, it's important for the offensive coordinator to have a plan in place to say, okay, the offensive line is struggling mightily to block right now. We are going to do X, Y, and Z to help them. And I think that is where Sean Lewis faltered the most. Is it didn't look like he had a great plan. You come out of the bye week against UCLA, you know that your offensive line is not great. And it didn't feel like he had pressed a button that said, okay, we're doing this to help the offensive line. And I don't know this for certain, but I would assume there was a conversation between Coach Prime and Pat Shurmur where Pat Shurmur displayed he does have a plan that he would be willing to try and execute that he thinks can help this offensive line. And Coach Prime said, all right, let's see it. Let's go do it. I need this. Again, I certainly don't think anyone should be like dancing on the grave of Sean Lewis because he's still very, very young. And like I said, I believe still has a bright future. But Coach Prime doesn't wait around. He tries to win.
Exactly. I'm right there with you. I mean, Sean Lewis, I still believe that he could be, a prominent offensive coach or potentially head coach in college football down the line. I mean, everyone knows what this team's deficiencies are. We're kind of, hands behind our back with this offensive line that we have right now. Coach Prime's been upfront about that. We got Jordan
Yep.
Seaton coming in tomorrow. We've got Coach Prime saying, go get new O linemen. Like, it's going to happen. Things are going to be changing. And that's another thing about this. I mean, Coach Prime, you go back to his history at Jackson State, and Neely's told us about this a bunch, how he changed offensive coordinators almost every single year, just trying to find the right fit and get the offense going the way that it's supposed to go. I mean, we all know what Shurmur is. We all know what he's capable of, what kind of quarterback he is. And I think it's fair to say that, he's been put in positions that have not really been advantageous to him or this offense. It's kind of a lose-lose situation there. But it's something that needed to happen. I mean, people are already talking about, they saw in the coaches show yesterday, Pat Shurmur was out there on the stage with Mark. That's pretty glaring because we've seen Coach Prime there, obviously, and Coach Brewster was up there in his place, but Pat Shurmur was up there for a reason.
Yep, absolutely. A couple things I want to address in the comments. Devin asked no show today. We are doing a show today. We will be live from Boulder with our guy, Uncle Neely, for the DNVR pregame show at 4:30. But, Jake and I saw this news come down. We're texting back and forth, and it's just like we can't wait until 4:30 to talk about this. So we wanted to go with you guys and process this and break this down a little bit. I started like crafting out tweets, and I'm just like, there is no tweet for the nuance that exists within this conversation. I don't really feel like dealing with all the trolls. Let's hop on, talk for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it may be, and process this with our community. So that's why we're here. And then someone else said, is this 100% real news? Yes. It came from Brett McMurphy, who broke it. Should have probably credited him a little earlier in the show, so apologies for that. But big time college football insider broke this news this morning, so it is absolutely factual. As for the next part of this, Pat Shurmur, the one who will be taking over from Sean Lewis, and obviously the instant reaction that has come out of Colorado is, of course, related to his time with the Denver Broncos, which was much maligned.
That's putting it kind of lightly, I think. It was brutal.
Yeah,
but I mean,
it was.
Well, just to go back to his time in Denver, I mean, those offenses were bad too. He was kind of hamstrung in those situations too. The team has been basically what we've seen the last few years. So I do think this is a guy that can bring in some like NFL head calling tendencies. I don't think, again, he's going to be able to do too much to the scheme. I think he can, help, maybe put in a few protections, maybe do stuff tendency wise to help and try at least give this team an edge offensively, whether it is calling a well-timed run or maybe just eliminating some of the play action that we've seen without the threat of the run game. It's a different mind too, a guy who's been around the NFL, a lot of college football as well. So this is a guy who knows offensive football. Broncos fans are going to freak out, but we have to let it play out tomorrow before we really come to conclusions.
Absolutely. And here's what I'll say. your track record in the NFL has nothing to do with how successful you can be in college. It is so different. It's damn near two different sports, college football and the NFL. Um, and you see this all the time when college coaches go try to great college coaches go try to be NFL coaches. It most of the time does not work, and it's because it's just so different. So to me, looking at what Pat Shurmur did with the Broncos and saying, well, this means he can't have success with the Buffs is silly. And here's the other thing. It's all about the quarterback. A lot of people out there are posting stats about how much better Colorado is on offense this year than they were last year, which is kind of silly in the first place. But, I'm not trying to say that Sean Lewis has nothing to do with that, because I think he did. He has had huge games for this passing offense. The TCU game, I've mentioned it many times. He called that game damn near perfectly. So the passing offense has, of course, improved some because of Sean Lewis, but let's not kid ourselves. This is a player's game. The passing offense has improved because they have arguably the best quarterback in the country taking the snaps from them under center. When Pat Shurmur coached in the NFL, it actually is pretty crazy to look at the quarterbacks that he did have. He almost never had a great quarterback.
No.
You could easily make the argument that relative to the competition, Shedeur Sanders is far and away the best quarterback that Pat Shurmur has ever had. Like I said, we're talking about NFL versus college. It's so hard to compare that, but he's having success with Nick Foles, and he's having success with I'm blanking on Case Keenum in Minnesota. Right? Was it Minnesota? Was he there?
Yeah.
Was he the guy in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Shedeur, one of the best quarterbacks in his league. Pat Shurmur never had much in terms of that high of ranking, and had, some success. Like I said, comparing the NFL and college is silly. And the big takeaway from this, Jake, is, if you're a Broncos fan who is like, oh my God, I can't believe this, just have a little bit of patience. It may work, it may not. This isn't some magic wand thing that's just going to fix some of the issues personnel-wise. In the same way that I'm giving Shedeur the credit and saying it's a player game, it's also a player game when it comes to protecting him. Now, there are things that you can do. And I felt there wasn't enough creativity, and we talked about that all week. This isn't some, hindsight 2020. I felt like there wasn't enough creativity in trying to help the scheme for the pass rush. But at the same time, there is a chance that these guys just can't get it done up front, regardless of how you help them. And, we might look back in a few weeks and say, well, this didn't work. But it's also, we might look back in a few weeks and say this was a home run move at the right time with 4 games left that got them over the hump and helped them get to a bowl game.
Dude, that's my main takeaway, I think, is that this is do or die time for this season. If this team wants to get to bowl eligibility, they got to really start. And first off, as you said, not much is going to change in terms of the personnel, in terms of the actual design and stuff. But it's do or die time. If you're going to make a change and try and get to bowl eligibility, now is the time to do it. And so I admire that Coach Prime, made this decision at this point in time, kind of pushing his chips into the center of the table for this season, and really making a move, something to shake up, the disarray we've really seen on offense. I mean, last week was only 16 points. They had the touchdown late, but man, this was 9 points. They were only scoring field goals. They couldn't punch it in the red zone. Shedeur was under siege. No running game. They weren't even trying to run the ball last weekend. So these were changes that had to be made. With the tweet that McMurphy put out there, he said Deion Sanders must elevate Shurmur from analyst to full-time coach to be eligible to coach. So that means someone has to come down. So there's still going to be shuffling around the coaching staff, and this is just the start of it, I think. I think this is going to be not a remade coaching staff going into next season, but we're going to see some new faces.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you said it perfectly. Look, you've got Oregon State at home, Arizona at home, Washington State on the road. You need to win 2 to get to a bowl. I know Coach Prime said he's not worried about bowl. He's just worried about winning, which I believe. But I'm worried about a bowl because, to me, that is a nice marker to hit in year one. If they get 4 or 5, it's still a huge improvement from last season, of course. But if you were to get to 6, no one, well, I can't say no one because the haters will always hate no matter what.
Of
But
course.
no one
And they're
that
out
is
today.
being, no one that is being honest with themselves would be able to say that this wasn't a out and out success if they get to 6. You have a home game this week; those are always winnable. Home game next week; those are always winnable. You have Washington State the week after that, which, based on the way they're playing right now, might be the best matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Utah. We know that is going to be an incredibly tough matchup because, as we always say, styles make fights. Utah is built to take advantage of the weaknesses that Colorado has. That being said, these 3 really are huge opportunities for you. So, like you said, it was the perfect time to make a move. And I think this is the last point I'll have on this. Pat Shurmur and Shedeur have developed a nice relationship over the past few months as he's been here, and I think that probably played a role here too. Feels like there's some trust there, and in the end, this team, not even just the offense, this team goes as Shedeur goes. So if Pat feels like he has a really good grasp on what Shedeur likes and what he wants to do, that could be incredibly helpful for this offense.
Absolutely. I mean, Shador's the guy. He's what makes it work. And if it's not working for him on the field, then something has to change because we know what he's capable of. It's not like Shador got bad last week, and we know it's the offensive line primarily. So definitely time for a change to be made. Um, I guess we should clarify Sean Lewis has not been fired. He's still on the
Nope.
staff.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens as we move towards the end of the year. But as it stands right now, they're kind of co-OCs, Pat Shurmur and Sean Lewis, moving forward.
Yep, and that I think that's important to know. As Brett McMurphy said, Sean Lewis will still signal in the plays,
Yes.
and so he'll have a headset. He'll be communicating with Pat Shurmur, who I believe will be calling plays from the booth. And those two, like you said, kind of be a co-OC. Hopefully, it works out really well, and they have a harmonious relationship as they kind of compare and contrast. Like I always say about our post-game shows, I love that we have 3 different views of what's going on in the game. Sean's going to be on the field; he's going to have his
Yep.
view of the game. Pat's going to be up top; he'll have his view of the game. Those combining those two things together, and it's not as if Sean Lewis didn't have eyes up there before, but combining those 2 things together could be really helpful. So hopefully this works. And I think for those of you, like I said earlier, who are saying that oh my God, Pat Shurmur, blah blah blah, just see what happens. No reason not
Yep.
to let it play out and see what happens.
Good comment from Connor. I mean, obviously the Beavers were preparing for Sean Lewis to call plays in this offense. Again, not much is going to change schematically and all that, but it's another wrench that's thrown in there. I mean, you kind of have an advantage in that regard in terms of, we haven't seen Pat Shurmur as a play caller in quite a while. We definitely haven't seen him in this offense. So it's just an
Or at this
unknown
level.
that Oregon, exactly. And it's just an unknown Oregon State's going to have to deal with this weekend.
Yep. Last thing, I think, Jake, I'm going to soft launch this, and hopefully I'll have more details and better details for you guys later. But we are going to have a tailgate tomorrow on Franklin Field, which is the outdoor practice field for the Buffs that you see when they're up top next to the IPF. So the closest field to the stadium where a lot of the tailgating goes down. We are going to have a tailgate there tomorrow for free. So anyone can come. We'd love to see all of you. We're doing it in partnership with the 5430 Foundation. We're super excited. We'll have some food. We'll have some drinks. And so we'd love to see you guys out there. We're sorry that it took so long to get this information out there, but I assure you it was not our fault. So, or 5430's fault for that matter.
No.
Stay tuned on that. Hopefully we'll have some more information about it by the time we do the DNVR pregame show later tonight. But we're super excited to see you guys tomorrow for homecoming before the game.
Yep, can't wait. That's about all I got. Shout out to chat for coming to hang out for a little bit here. Again, we will be live sometime this evening, afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. And can't wait to hang out with y'all tomorrow. Let's go Buffs.
Can't wait. Let's go Buffs. We'll see you guys later today.